You all see the greatness, the records, the rings, but none of you saw what it did to our family. Those words didn't come from a critic. They came from someone who watched Stephen Curry grow up, fall, rise, and get crowned the king of long range. His own sister, Sydel Curry, sat in silence for years, watching from the shadows as the world adored her brother. But now, she's ready to speak. And what she says, it changes everything you thought you knew about Stephen Curry. He's the golden boy of basketball. Humble, God-fearing, family first. That's the image. And it's not fake, not entirely. But behind every camera flash, every game-winning three-pointer, there was something else. Something quietly unraveling in the background. A family struggling to keep up. A sister learning to smile while feeling invisible. I wasn't jealous of the fame, Sydel says slowly. I was just forgotten. That's what hurt the most. She doesn't say it with bitterness. There's no malice in her voice. Just pain. And maybe something even deeper, grief. Because to her, Steph wasn't just an NBA icon. He was her big brother. Her hero. The one who made her laugh until her stomach hurt. The one who snuck snacks in her room when mom said no. The one who promised he'd always have her back. But when the spotlight found him, everything changed. Sydel's story isn't about exposing Stephen Curry. It's not some tabloid drama. It's about what happens when one person's dream becomes so big, it swallows everything else around it, even the people they love. He didn't mean to hurt me, she says, eyes fixed on the floor. But sometimes, not meaning to doesn't change the damage. There's a moment of silence. Then she adds, I don't want sympathy. I just want people to understand there was a cost. A cost no one saw. A side of success rarely talked about. Because while Steph was lighting up arenas and changing the game of basketball, Sydel was sitting in the stands, clapping, smiling, hurting. This story matters because it reminds us of something powerful. Even the brightest lights can cast the longest shadows. And sometimes, the ones standing in those shadows have a story of their own, a story they've been waiting years to tell. I remember the exact moment everything shifted, Sydel says. He hit a game winner from way behind the arc. The crowd exploded. Twitter went crazy. And I just sat there, numb. The world saw the shot, the celebration, the Curry magic. What they didn't see, Sydel, sitting in the family section, tears in her eyes. Not from joy, but from a loneliness that had been building for years. Back when they were kids, they were inseparable. Steph wasn't just her big brother. He was her safe place. When the noise of life got loud, she ran to him. But once the fame hit, the distance did too. He started missing everything. Not just holidays or birthdays. That's expected. He missed me. My pay, my wins, my life. Sydel tried to understand. Everyone did. How could you not? He was carrying an entire franchise. Changing the NBA. Providing for the whole family. But emotional absence isn't fixed by money. And phone calls get shorter. Replies turn into, I'll call you back. Eventually, even that stops. One of the hardest moments? Her sophomore year in college. Sydel was battling through injuries, pressure, and anxiety attacks that no one really knew about. Volleyball used to be her escape, but now it felt like a burden. There were nights I didn't want to get out of bed. Nights I cried myself to sleep. I just needed one person to ask if I was okay. She waited for that text. From him. It never came. Meanwhile, Steph was breaking records. Becoming the face of Under Armour, sitting courtside with Obama, living in a world so loud and bright, he didn't hear the silence growing back home. I wasn't mad he was succeeding, she clarifies. I was mad that I felt invisible, like I had to shrink so he could shine. Then came the missed therapy session. She was scheduled for her first real session to deal with anxiety and family tension. It meant everything to her. Steph had promised to be there. I'll fly in for it, I swear, he told her. The day came. The seat beside her stayed empty. He had a last-minute shoot-around. I remember staring at that door, hoping it would open. But it never did. That was when something broke inside her. Not because he chose basketball, but because she felt like she didn't matter enough to make him pause, even for 1 hour. The silence between them stretched for weeks. Texts unread, calls unanswered. She started asking herself a question that hurt more than anything else. Does he even see me anymore? And it wasn't just her. Family dinners turned into media events. Every moment felt like it came with cameras, hashtags, and brand deals. Their once tight bond was now a series of polite check-ins and public smiles. But deep down, a storm was building, and it would all come crashing down on a day that was supposed to be the happiest of her life. The day of Sydel's wedding should have been the culmination of everything she dreamed of. It was supposed to be about love, celebration, and family. But there was something else in the air, something heavy, hanging between her and the one person who was supposed to be there for her the most. Stephen had promised. He'd promised to walk her down the aisle when their dad couldn't. It was a moment he knew would be the hardest for her, a symbol of support that meant everything. But when the clock ticked closer to the ceremony, something was wrong. Her heart raced as she glanced at the door, waiting for him to show up. The photographers were snapping pictures. The flowers were arranged perfectly, but all Sydel could think about was him. Where was he? He's just running late, she told herself. It's okay. It's Stephen. He's busy. He'll be here. But as the minutes stretched, the unease grew. The whispers started. People noticed. The wedding coordinator looked at her, a flicker of pity in her eyes. Should we start the ceremony? Sydel shook her head, but she could feel the tension in her chest. Finally, when the doors opened, it wasn't Steph who walked in. It was a member of the family who took her arm. The cameras flashed, but the moment fell hollow. Then, just as the ceremony was about to begin, she heard footsteps. Stephen. He walked in late, as if nothing had changed. His usual smile, his usual swagger. He apologized, gave a quick hug, and immediately turned to talk to someone else. The moment that should have been hers was just swallowed up by the crowd. Sydel stood at the altar, her heart sinking. Later, after the vows had been exchanged, the reception was filled with laughter, dancing, and cheers. But all Sydel could think about was the empty seat beside her. Steph had been there physically, but emotionally, he might as well have been a world away. It wasn't the late arrival that hurt. It was the way he never once looked at her and said, "I'm proud of you." Her wedding day had been tainted by the nagging feeling that the bond they once shared was no more. That something was lost in the pursuit of greatness. That, no matter how hard she tried, she'd never be able to get it back. Later that night, when everything had quieted down and the crowd had thinned, Sydel found herself alone in the hotel lobby, staring out into the city lights. She didn't hear the footsteps behind her until she felt the soft tap on her shoulder. It was Stephen. She turned around, her voice barely a whisper. "You weren't there." He swallowed, clearly uncomfortable. "I know. I'm sorry." Sydel's eyes burned with tears, but she refused to let them fall. "I needed you today, Steph. I needed you to show up. Not just as my brother, but as someone who actually sees me. I've been waiting for you to come back, but I don't think you ever will." There was a long, painful silence. And then, for the first time in years, Steph didn't just nod or offer empty words. He stood there, looking at her, not as the greatest shooter of all time, not as a global icon, but as her brother. "I'm sorry," he whispered, eyes filled with regret. "I've been so focused on everything else that I lost track of what really matters. You matter to me, Sydel, more than anything." The tears that had been held back for so long finally spilled over. But in that raw moment, something shifted. They didn't have all the answers, but the truth was spoken. And in the silence that followed, they both knew it wasn't too late to rebuild. The next few months weren't easy. There was no dramatic overnight fix to the years of emotional distance between them. But there was something real, something they both hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Steph kept his word. He didn't just promise to be there. He showed up, often unannounced. No cameras, no media hype. It wasn't grand gestures, but the small things. A text just to check in, a surprise visit to one of Sydel's charity events, or even a simple phone call at the end of a long day. There were nights when they stayed up late, talking for hours, about everything and nothing. About family, about their childhood, about how things got so complicated, and about the deep pain Sydel had carried all these years, silently. Steph never tried to justify his absence anymore. He never gave her excuses. He simply listened. And for the first time in a long time, Sydel felt like she was being seen, not as just Sydel Curry's sister, but as her own person. I was lost in my own world, Steph admitted one evening, sitting with her at her kitchen table, a steaming cup of tea between them. Chasing success, chasing perfection, and I left the people who mattered most behind. You dad, Mom. It's like I didn't know how to balance it all. Sydel nodded, her hand gripping her mug. She didn't say anything at first. The words would come later. But for now, just hearing him speak so honestly without defensiveness felt like a weight lifted off her chest. Over time, their bond began to heal, slowly but steadily. And it wasn't all perfect. They still had disagreements. There were still awkward moments. But they learned to be present for each other, to appreciate the quiet times. And more importantly, they learned that healing wasn't about fixing the past. It was about learning to grow together. One of the most significant moments came when Steph flew in to attend a small, intimate charity event Sydel had organized for young girls struggling with mental health. He didn't bring a camera crew or a publicist. It was just him, showing up, sitting quietly in the back, supporting her from the shadows, just like he had once supported her in their childhood. After the event, he pulled her aside, his eyes filled with pride. You're incredible, Sydel. You've always been. I see you now. I see everything you've done, and I'm so damn proud of you. For the first time, Sydel didn't need to hear those words from anyone else. She didn't need the approval of the media, the fans, or even the world. All she needed was to hear them from him. And he said them. The healing wasn't a destination. It was a journey they both knew would take time. But it was a start. And sometimes that's all you need to start. T's been years since the day Sydel stood by the window, hoping for a brother to show up. The truth is, the journey of rebuilding their relationship wasn't linear. It wasn't perfect. There were times when it seemed like they would never get it back, that the damage was too deep, the gap too wide. But sometimes, it's the simplest things that matter the most. It's the quiet phone calls, the genuine apologies, the small, everyday actions that show love isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up when it matters most. And for Sydel and Steph, that's exactly what happened. They found each other again, not in the chaos of his stardom or the pressure of her own career, but in the quiet moments where they could just be themselves, siblings first and foremost. Sydel's story is one of perseverance, of learning to stand tall, not just because of who her brother is, but because of who she is. She learned that her worth wasn't tied to his fame, and her value wasn't determined by how much attention the world gave her. I don't need the spotlight, she says, her voice steady, a peaceful smile on her face. I just need the people who love me for me. And for once, she feels like she's finally getting that. It may have taken years of silence, tears, and broken promises, but Sydel found her voice, and so did Stephen. They're still a family, still learning, still healing. But more than anything, they're together. Now, as you read this, you might be wondering, have you ever felt like you were lost in the shadow of someone else's success? Like the people who love you were too distracted to notice your pain? Or maybe you're in the midst of healing a relationship, unsure of where it will go. We all have our struggles, our stories, but there's something powerful about sharing them, about telling the truth, even when it hurts. Because the truth has a way of setting us free. If this story resonated with you, share it. Because there are others out there who need to know that they are seen, that their stories matter. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories of real-life triumphs, struggles, and the unbreakable power of family. Because in the end, it's the bonds we build and the love we share that truly define us.